Welcome to Linear Fisheries. I'm Mark Bartlett, this is Tom Maker and Kev Hewitt, and we're here filming the DVD for Linear Fisheries. We were lucky enough to film in May. I fished over on Brasenose 2, Tom fished on Hardwick and Kev fished on Manor, and we caught some absolutely cracking fish and saw some cracking fish elsewhere on the complex as well. But now I'm off to Unity, which is part of the Syndicate Lakes, to have a look at those lakes and the fish in there. Tom's going to be fishing on Hunt's Corner and Kev's fishing on Oxley's, and we're going to have a look at exactly our approach coming into the colder months to put some carp on the bank. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll put a few on the mat, but let's go and have a look.
Kev's going to kick it off. He's fishing over on Manor, which I know is one of his favourite waters. Bart's over on Brasenose 2, which again is a water that he absolutely loves, a real smash it up water where you can go and put some fish on the bank. Luckily for me, I've joined Hardwick Smiths, a lake that I've had great success from in the past. Last year I caught one of the real big ones out of there. The lake itself, brief bit of history about it before I get going. Used to be two lakes, it's now joined by a small channel in the middle of probably about 20 yards wide. And it really is a lake of two halves, you know. I've got the spit of Hardwick, which is a known productive swim, but just because it's a known productive area doesn't necessarily mean that the fish are going to be there. You know, I could be fishing on Hardwick and the fish could be behind me in Smiths. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in the van, scoot round there, get the gear in the swim, bit of preparation, and hopefully tomorrow I can put a few fish on the bank.
Well, Mr. Cameraman couldn't have timed it any better. Just as he's turned up, I've just slipped the net under this absolute peach of a common. Cracking fish. For the record, she weighs 30 pounds in 9 ounces, and it's just sort of typical of the sort of stamp that Manor holds. I suppose we better slip her back and have a look at the bait and the tactics that I would use to tackle this venue. I've been fishing Manor for over 12 years now, and it's always been renowned as the big fish water on the complex. Now, over the past few years, quite a few of the other lakes are starting to catch up and overtake it in terms of Oxley's has done his first 50 pound common, and some of the other lakes are doing some very big fish too. But this lake, it's hard to say exactly how many fish are in here. It's 14 acres in size, and I'd estimate there to be around about 700 fish in here. Now, quite a few fish had escaped out of the stock ponds in the floods quite a few years ago in 2008, and they're doing really well. Some of them have come out well over 30 pounds already, so it's really promising, and they show great growth rates in here. 30s wise, I've had a lot of fish out of here, and I've seen a lot of 30s, and I'd probably estimate there to be around about 40 30s at the right time of year. And as for those real big ones, there's probably around about half a dozen 40s in the lake at the right time of year. There's a couple of real special ones in here for me. The reason I first started fishing it was for the birthmark linear, and that is an absolute peach of a fish, and that goes over 40 pound at the right time of the year. Kempy's linear is another one that most people target on the lake. That's a big fish, well over 40 pound pretty much all year round. Then you've got a fish called Spike as well, which I spent a lot of years trying to catch, and I finally caught it last year. There's quite a few others knocking on the door as well. We've done a few 38s, 39s, and keep an eye out. Those fish will be 40 pound in the not too distant future. I'm in the brown swim right now, and there's a couple of other areas worth mentioning. Further up to my left, you've got the back bay, which narrows up, and when it warms up, the fish love to get in there in numbers, and you can really have some good action at close quarters. And later on in the year, when it cools down and you're heading into winter, The fish tend to head down to the road bank. In Peg 5 and the Whitney Point seems to be an area that has been really consistent in the last few winters. So if you're coming down in the winter, then that would be the area that I would be heading for. I have to say that Manor Farm is probably my favourite lake on the complex. One of the reasons is A, obviously because of the big fish that it contains, and secondly, it's not really that peggy a lake. The fish tend to move about quite a lot, and with the angling pressure they tend to bounce off, and over a 24-hour period it's quite often that they will do a full circuit of the lake, and at some point they will be in front of almost every swim in the lake. So over a 24-hour period you've normally always got a chance or two of a couple of bites, and to be honest, when they do turn up you can get quite a few. I've had 5 fish this morning, which just goes to show that they've turned up in front of me, and I've had a few. And I have to be honest, I didn't actually want to fish this swim. When I come down to do the filming, I wanted to fish over in the car park swims. The wind's pushing in there and everything looked perfect for it, but Mr. Chris Blunt, he actually told me that I wanted to be fishing over here in the brown swim. So I'm not one to argue, and obviously it's paid off because I've had my 30-pounder. The lake as a whole, as I said, is not really that peggy. The road bank tends to be deeper, so in Peg 3 you'll find the deepest water. It's around about 13 to 14 foot. When you start going into Peg 4 and 5 it shallows up a little bit, up to about 9 foot in depth. When you come further up the lake it tends to get shallower. We're in the brown swim today and I've got depths of around 6 foot out in front of me. It's always worth having a quick plumb around with the marker rod. I wouldn't say it's particularly spotty. There's not particular spots that you need to fish. They do feed well on the silt, they do feed well on the gravel, and at this moment in time there's not actually any weed out there. But in the summer months the weed can come up a bit, so if you just carefully plumb around and fish a clearer area and put some bait in, and the fish will come to it and get on it. There's also some really nice areas around as well. There's some bars out in front of me and you can actually see them in the summer. They come up to around 2 foot in depth. And although you don't want to fish on the top of them, you can fish off the side of them, and the fish really regularly use those as patrol routes. Now let's have a little closer look at the bait. I'm really one for keeping it simple, and my bait mix consists of 3 items: sweet corn, hemp and 10mm boilies. Now the fish love this. It's a really simple starting point, and to be honest I've been fishing that combination now for the 12 years that I've been fishing on the complex, and I've caught absolutely tons of fish on all the venues, and I tend to find my spot and put a big helping of bait in, sometimes up to 2 or 3, maybe 4 kilos when they're really having it, and just judge it as you go. When you're getting a couple of bites, keep trickling a bit of bait in, and just keep them coming back to the spot and keep them feeding, really. Of course, Manor is not the easiest lake by any stretch of the imagination, so if you're looking for something a little bit more prolific, then B1 and B2 are the ones to head for.
What a lovely fish this is, 24 pound. Caught this one just before the cameras turned up, but a nice start to the session anyway. So let's go and have a look at exactly what Brasenose 2's got to offer and exactly how to approach it as well. Let's catch you some of these. Well, you just see me with that, that lovely 20-pounder, and that was a fish caught on a baited area. What I've done at the start of the session, I've used my float, my marker float. I found a spot out in the lake. You know, it is a gravel pit. There are going to be little areas of weed in that. So I found a little spot. I've just used my spom, and I've introduced 10 spomfuls of bait. And this is, you know, these lakes, they've got a lot of fish in it, especially Brasenose 1 and 2. But the spom it's like a dinner bell basically. So I've started off with 10 spods. That's enough to get me a bite. And yeah, so I'm just going to top it up now, and I'm probably going to put like 4 or 5 out, just enough for another bite. And you know, leave it an hour. If I haven't caught, then I'll put another 4 or 5 in as well, and just keep ringing that bell little and often. And what I'm using is a really simple mix. And I know Kev and Tom's mix as well. They're very similar. I mean, I'm just using hemp, sweet corn, and the boilies that I want to use. This is for one reason, is we fished up here for a long time now, and it works. And that's why all 3 of us have very similar spod mixes. And not only does it work on this lake and Brasenose 1, but it works on the whole of the linear complex. And we've caught some massive fish on this all year round as well. So do yourself a favour, get your spod mix like that, and I can guarantee you that the fish ain't going to be very far away. Well, from what I've showed you, it's got us a bite straight away and we're into a fish. You know, this is a lake where the more effort you put in, you can really get some decent hits of fish, which is brilliant. You can come here and have a lovely day's fishing every time. Not so long ago where a couple, husband and wife, actually caught 90 fish in one session, which is outstanding. You know, there's not many places in the country that you can go and catch that. Wouldn't surprise me actually if we get another bite quite shortly. You know, the fish in here, they're sort of shoal fish. It's a big gravel pit, they all sort of swim around together, and when they come over you, you could really get 3 or 4 bites in 20 minutes. So it's always worth having a rod ready to go, or ready to be on your toes to get a bit of action, because it comes thick and fast sometimes on here. Nice. Well, it's quite a decent fish, that one. Yeah, belter. Well happy with that. Let's pop her on the mat, have a quick look at her. Yeah. Well, that fish is a little bit bigger than I thought. 22.7 or thereabouts. Happy days. Lovely fish, this one. I mean, this is like typical stamp for here. You can catch these all day long and never really get bored of it. You know, when you get a hit of fish and they're like this, it's brilliant fishing. So we're going to just pop this back. Well, that's a little bit more bait out, up to the carp now. Look at that. That is an absolute peach.
Nice scaly one. Of course, we're on Manor at the moment, but just over my shoulder is another epic lake called St John's. Now, I first fished that in 2003 and was fortunate enough to catch my first 30 from that venue, and I've loved it ever since. The lake itself nowadays contains, I'd say, around about 1,000 fish, so is really well stocked, with at least 30 30s and 4 real big ones that go over the 40-pound barrier. And it has to be said, one of the nicest day ticket carp in the country resides in that venue. Of course, everyone knows it, it's the big plated. So that is the one that everyone is here for. When I look at the lake, I tend to split it down into 3 areas. You've got the road bank, the big bowl area at the road bank, which tends to have average depths of from 10 to sort of 14 foot. So it tends to be the deepest part of the lake. And that end tends to score well on zigs early on in the season. And generally sort of 80 yards plus, tends to fish well over bait. But similar to this venue, bags, zigs, bit of bait, choddies, a little bit of everything tends to work quite well down there. The second part of the lake when I look at it and split it down is the channel area. Now this averages around about 10 foot deep, and the fish love to get up and down there, and they love to get it up and down in numbers. It's probably the least popular area of the lake, but the fish do get in there, and they get in there in numbers, and I've had some cracking fish out of there as well. And the final area is the back bay up at the top end. Now this area tends to be a lot shallower. It averages from sort of 6 foot, and the further round into the bay you go, it shallows right up to around 3 foot in depth. The warmer it is, the more fish that get in there. And with it being so shallow, you don't need to worry about zigs. It's all bottom fishing. Because it's so shallow, it tends to have just a little light coating of silkweed in there quite often throughout the year. So choddies score really well with a light scattering of bait over the top. If I had to give 3 top tips for fishing on St John's, I would say never neglect the zigs, particularly in the deeper end in spring. They absolutely get nailed on them. Also, when the sun comes out, the top end is where you want to be in the shallows. And also, one last tip is they absolutely love a floater. Last year, I'd done 3-day sessions up there, off the top on a hot summer's day, and had 30 fish to over 30 pound. So make sure you get your dog biscuits.
There you go, another prime example of a Hardwick Smith's carp. Hopefully I haven't used all my luck up today before the cameras have arrived, and hopefully the action will carry on tomorrow. And if it carries on the same as what it has this afternoon, well, it should be really good. So, slip this one back and we'll carry on fishing. Well, welcome to Hardwick and Smiths. In true filming style, I got down the night before. Couldn't resist the temptation to chuck the rods out. Managed to get on the windward end where I've seen a few fish in a spot that I fished quite a bit before. Clipped the rods up, put a bit of bait out. As I said, couldn't resist chucking them out, so I two out on the spot, got into fish straight away. And this is the pick of the bunch so far, 22 pound, and this really does go to show the quality of the fish that you can expect to catch in Hardwick and Smiths. This is one of the stocky ones. There's quite a few original fish left in here, so it'd be really nice to get into one of those. So we'll get this one back and we'll go from there. There he goes. Well, here we are, into another one, and that bite that you just saw there, that's typical of what they've all been like. The ones I've had this session and the ones I've had before. I'm fishing on top of a bar that's not very wide, and they sort of pick it up, realise what's happened. You get a couple of sort of ups and downs. They drift off the side of the bar and then they're into open water, and then they're starting to, then they're running off away from the spot. Fishing a nice tight line out there, so I'm not sat in my bivvy listening to false indication the whole session. And the minute you hook them, they seem to all be firing round to the right-hand side and trying to do their best to go through the channel into Smiths. But luckily enough, I've got me nice. The good thing about fishing somewhere like Hardwick is the fact that you haven't got to chuck to the moon like some of the other lakes. So I can get away with using my nice 2 3/4 pound test curve rods, and you can enjoy the fight rather than just beef them in. With a nice soft rod, you can just guide them back round and hopefully guide them into the net. That's the plan anyway. Just see the leader there. Well, it is a bit of a submarine, him. Perfect. Well, that's how to do it. The quality of the fish you can expect to catch in Hardwick. Oh. Well, how about that? That's the reason that I come to Linear, and more so, that's the reason I fish Hardwick. A proper piece of Hardwick history. A fish like this has survived the floods of '07, and it's still here. There's only a handful of these left in here now. These are the original Oxford strainer carp that were in here. I can't quite believe it. Normally when you do filming, things don't quite go to plan, but well, what can I say? Today's certainly gone to plan. Hopefully I'll slip this one back, sort of reflect on it overnight if you like, and hopefully tomorrow it carries on the same. Awesome. Let's release this beast. Just under 30 pound, as I said. These aren't the type of fish that you catch every session on here, but these are the ones that you work towards catching, and it makes the rewards of fishing here all that bit more sweeter. Unbelievable, absolutely blown away. Look at that, like a submarine. Proper battle scars across its shoulder. Nice big plated scales. Its mouth is absolutely immaculate. Like I say, these fish just do not come out, you know, once or twice a year. Look at that. Oh yes.
Well, there we go. We're into another manner fish. It doesn't feel too bad. It's kicking his head a bit. Probably means there's another smaller one, but in this lake you just never know. So many big fish in here. It was a really funny take. The bobbin just pulled up tight and it just sort of held there. Quite often that's the bigger fish just picking up the bait and shaking the head and trying to get rid of the rig before you sort of get a chance to pick the rod up, but she's on there and she's kiting around to the right at the moment. Put a bit of pressure on and see if we can get her in the net. Seems like they're on the feed. In the net she goes. There's another one on my little hinge stiff rig. Decent sized common by the looks of things. Little 10mm pop up, tipped with a bit of plastic horn. Really nice and simple rig, but it works. Well, we'll look a little bit closer at the rig in a minute, but let's get this one on the scales and see what she weighs. Well, there we go, another typical Manor Farm common. A little bit bigger than what I thought she was at first. When it comes to rigs, I like to keep it nice and simple. Now, I don't personally think that the Manor Farm carp are actually that riggy. I think if you can get them feeding, you can catch them on any sort of decent presentation out there. For the record, I use a little hinge stiff rig. It's nice and simple. One of the reasons that I use it is because the stiff boom section sort of kicks the hook bait away from the leader all the time. And if the fish picks it up and ejects it, it does reset itself all the time. And it's always just slightly popped up off the bottom. So if I'm fishing in silts, then I want my hook bait just off the bottom. Hook bait wise, I tend to always sort of keep it the same as the food items that I'm putting in my spod mix. So I've got a 10mm pop up, tipped with a bit of plastic horn, and I always give it a bit of a bait boost and dip it in a bit of beetle just to make my hook bait stand out from the rest. But realistically on the lake, I think lots of rigs works. I've caught a lot of fish on solid bags, and I think that's always a good tactic, is to, if you see fish showing and you're just turning up, always put on a solid bag and cast a showing fish. That can nick you a quick bite, but in the long run I think they really do love their grub in here. So get a bit of bait in on a spot and pretty much they will get on it. Also, one other thing is that zig rigs really work in here as well. They work all across the complex. At times zig rigs dominate, but on here I'd say they love their grub a bit more, and they're easier to catch on the bottom. But also, if you are struggling, it's always worth playing around with zig rigs as well.
Well, that didn't take long. Saw me putting those few spoms out there, and the old dinner bell is instant. There you go, another Brasenose 2 carp, waiting for his roast dinner, and instead he got my pop-up, unfortunately. This fishing is ever so simple. We're putting our bait out on the spot, a couple of rigs over the top, and you know, the action's brilliant. You can come here and it doesn't matter, it could be snowing. I mean, me and Tom have fished on Oxley's, and you know, we've had 106 takes in a weekend and it's been snowing all weekend, and there aren't many places you can go and do that, and this venue is no different. Now, these two lakes, they are the biggest lakes on the complex, and Brasenose 1, the fish stock in there is absolutely unreal. I mean, the head of 30-pound fish in there is second to none now. I mean, just this spring alone it's probably done 30 and upwards different 30-pounders. The difference between Brasenose 1 and Brasenose 2 is that Brasenose 1 has just got more of an average depth. It's sort of deeper all over. There's one little area down one end that's sort of 10 foot deep, and the rest of it's 12 to 14 foot. So it's really, you know, it's really good average depth. You know, and that's part of the reason why the fish grow so big in there as well. You know, the fish over 25 pound must be literally in the hundreds, and I'm talking like upper hundreds. It's, you know, it's ridiculous really. There's not many lakes in the country where you can go and fish for that head of 20s. You've got a very, very good chance of getting a 30-pounder now. Plenty of other fish like upper doubles, a few little scaly stockies as well. Obviously they've got to keep the fish coming on, and they're really pleasant to catch, very good looking fish. And yeah, I mean, you can have some brilliant fishing on there, and it's the same for Brasenose 2 really. I mean, this lake's actually got a 40-pounder in already, which is you know, unbelievable how fast they're growing in here. And I think it's due to the makeup of the lake and the way the lake is. With Brasenose 2, you've just got it's more of a carpier lake, shall we say. You know, you got deeper areas, but there's a lot of features. You've got gravel bars, weed beds, you know, along with the natural food, the good habitat with the shallow areas. You know, there's always going to be areas where the fish want to feed, and obviously the angler's bait. The type of lakes these are, the anglers are using a lot of bait because you're fishing for a lot of fish, and obviously in turn they're growing really well. Well, this fish is nearly ready for netting. It's just down here in the margin, and it's trying to do me around the reeds, but I'm having none of it. The weather's looking absolutely bang on for it now, mind. I mean, we just put those few spods of bait out, and as I was doing that, I seen a couple of fish showing over the back of the spot, which I knew it wasn't going to be long before we got a bite, to be fair. And here we are. Here she comes. A nice fish. Cracking. Let's get her unhooked. See if we can catch another one. Another lovely fish. Brilliant. Well, you saw me just pop that fish back, and you know, I'm just putting a new bait on, so I may as well show you the rig that I caught it on, to be honest. And it's really simple. I've got just a leg core leader there, and that's on a leg clip. A decent sized weight. On these gravel pits you can get a bit of wind, and you know, I have two approaches. One I'm going to show you in a minute, and you know, this is my first one, but obviously it's quite windy today, so I'm going to use a straight leg clip setup. Decent weight. I mean, that's a 4-ounce weight, and just a small 10-inch coated, well, that's a soft coated braid hook length. And then as for hook baits, I'm just using small little bright pop-ups. You can try different pop-ups on each rod and just work out which one's the best for the day, really. And that's just going to sit up off the bottom. And the reason I use the bright hook baits is just so it stands out over my feed. At the end of the day, I'm putting a lot of sweet corn, hemp and boilies in, and that's just going to get me the quicker bite. And I mean, well, we've had a couple of bites really quickly already today, so obviously it's working. And this seems to be a good colour as well. I've got a different colour on the other rod, and it's this one that keeps going. So we'll chuck this back out and see if we can catch another one now. This is my version of single hook bait fishing. You know, rather than just chucking an actual single hook bait, chucking a bag of pellets is by far more effective. Just micro pellet in there. If you want, you can fill it up with any liquids that you want to use just to enhance it, but you can slam this to show in fish, and this is going to get you a really quick bite, and it's also really effective over the baited area. I mean, I don't use a lot of pellets in my spod mix, and this just makes that little bit more attractive when fishing it over the bait. And if you want to know what the rig actually looks like inside, this is the rig. Just a shorter version of the leg clip setup. This is an uncoated braid, same hook bait, no need to change that. Heavy inline lead, pop that in the bag, fill it full of pellets, out on the baited area, and you know, that is going to get you a bite. Well, let's go and see how Kev's getting on Manor. You know, there's some big fish in there, and you never know, he might have bagged one of them. So yeah, let's go and see how he's getting on.
Well, looks like a nice fish. We're into fish number 6 today on Manor. Just kind of goes to show what can be achieved on this venue when you get your tactics right and you get on the fish. It's got some beans, this one. Does not want to be put in front of the camera. Let's get you in. She's ready. In she goes. She's a beauty as well. That is absolutely gorgeous. There we go, another one falls to the hinge stiff rig with a little 10mm tip with plastic corn. Just put a little bit of clinic just on the hook wound. Wow, pretty pleased with that. Fish number 6 for the day, and just goes to show what can be achieved on such a fabulous venue. Absolutely love it down here. I've had some absolute stunners with fish topping £30. What more can you ask for from a day ticket water? Back she goes.
There you go, another stunning double. There's plenty of these in Hardwick, so hopefully we can carry on catching them.
There's a lovely little linear. Just unhook it and we'll slip her back. That is an absolute gorgeous carp, and you've got to remember even the £40 carp around the complex up here started off this big once, and no doubt this one will get there as well. But like I say, brilliant fishing from fish of all sizes.
Well, we're here today. We've got our latest stocking of fish going in from, this time it's from Mark Simmons over at Heather Fisheries. As many of you are aware, we've got an ongoing stocking policy that we do every year. Normally stocking fish from C3s to C4s, which are normally £5 to £6 fish, but these ones are 9s to 12s, ready to go in there and be caught. We've got 200 fish going in today. These, we just weighed some there, they were all 10s and 11s and 12 pounders. 200 in total. We just, last week we put in another 100 over in our stock ponds ready to grow on, and the week before that we put another 400 in. So we're constantly topping fish up, either putting them into the main lakes or going into the actual stock ponds themselves for us to grow on and bring them on even further. The one thing we tend to find that works here is we're always stocking fish, always replacing the fish that lose through spawning or predation or anything else. They're always being topped up, and it keeps the big fish going. For example, last year we put a load of fish into St John's and it's really stirred the bigger fish up. So it's recommending we always do it every year. So whenever you see us mentioning our ongoing stocking policy, it's always about what we're doing right now. All these fish are off to Smith's Hardwick, which is just behind me. This is the Hardwick side of the lake. And with this stocking of 200 fish, we'll be in around about 1,100 fish in the lake then. Maybe just a little bit less than that, but we're over the 1,000 sort of figure for fish. So well, look at that fish there. Simo's always been known for his real plain, scaleless fish, but I think you'll agree this one sort of puts that myth to bed. I mean, you're not going to get any more scales on a fish than that. It's awesome. And we've got about 200 like that to go in here. Was it 25 for 2 fish?
Yeah. That's stunning, Chris. You know, what difference those scales have made on them, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean look at that one there. I mean it's got everything about it.
Yeah, yeah. You'll never get a better carp than that, I don't think, Chris.
No,
you know,
no,
and the thing is, putting the scales on the carp, we haven't lost any of the Simo growth rate, the fish's pond growth rate, you know.
It hasn't slowed them down
at all. It hasn't slowed them down at all.
No.
And to be putting these fish in a lake like we got here, gin clear water, packed with food, they can only go one way, and that's upwards. It's exciting times.
That's it, back there, that's it. Drop one a bit higher and that's it. One of you drop it a bit lower.
Hi, I'm James, I'm a linear bailiff. We're doing a spot tench fishing down on Oxleys. Let's go through and have a look at the swim. Here we are then. As you can see, we've got a large expanse of water in front of us. Probably fishing halfway down the bank. Nice and close. 15 yards out to my left, probably less than that to my right. No need to go fishing 100 yards out there. Most of the tench are in close. Wonderful. Well, I've been fishing here for 7 years now, and the tench fishing has just got better and better all the time. Even just the other day, Tommy Maker turned up and he had an 11-pound too. That's numerous doubles being caught all over the complex. Doesn't matter which lake, they're getting caught. Well, the weather has definitely changed today from yesterday. I fished yesterday, had 5 fish, up to £8.13, 7, 2, and a couple of smaller ones. Generally, I would still say that's quite slow fishing for on here. Today's even slower. The weather's changed, we've got a high pressure, it's bright sunshine, not much cloud cover, whereas yesterday, pressure was a little bit lower, nice cloud cover and a bit of wind. This morning, I saw one of the other bailiffs and he's informed me that there's been 2 double-figure tench caught on Manor Farm this morning. What a start to anybody's session. When I first started fishing and you looked around the lakes, it would be bream angler, tench angler, and a carp angler in the corner. Nowadays, everywhere is carp anglers with the odd bream and tench angler. If somebody was turning up at Linear for the first time, looking to fish for the tench or the bream, I would probably send them somewhere towards Manor, St John's, Hardwick Smiths. They're probably the ones that have got the most potential at the moment. Well, I've been sat here for a little while. Nothing's really happening at the minute, so I think it's about time for a recast and see if we can induce a bite. I'm just going to fill the feeder with red and bronze maggots so that they perfectly match the hook bait. Probably a rod, 2 rod lengths out, just over weed, just a simple underarm flick. We'll just let that sink gently to the bottom. Okay, rigs. This is my favoured method. Drennan block end feeder. Very simple. Put some tape on it just to slow the release of the maggots down and also to make sure that the maggots are released from the bottom so they come out around your hook bait. I have a tail rubber just to stop it all tangling. I've used a Drennan coated braid which I've stripped back to here down to a size 10 hook with 2 plastic maggots. Simple fact being, you don't have to keep changing the bait. They're not going to get nibbled by the small fish, and for the few crays that we have got in the lakes, it just keeps them at bay. So the rule for Linear is keep it simple. You don't need fancy rigs for tench fishing. Right, so that quick recast has proved positive. And we've now got a lovely tench on. You can see it down there in that lovely blue water. It's not a big one. The recast has definitely proved positive, but it's a tench. Yeah. Just pop the hook out. There we go, look at that. Perfect little Oxleys tench. Not the biggest, but still beautiful. Let's get her back and see if we can catch a bigger one.
It's a bit of a lump. Wow, what a fish. All I can say is poor old cameraman. This is the second time I've rang him once he's got all the gear packed up. and got back to the car, and this time it was well worth it. Absolute beast. He's tipped the scales at 36 pounds and 2 ounces, so as you can imagine, I'm absolutely made up with this one. What an absolute belter. Real high back, big shoulders to her, big belly on it. 36 pounds 2 ounce. Well, I've just had an absolute one toner. I'm absolutely buzzing because I've just had a 36 pounder, second 30 of the day, and put probably 4 or 5 more spods out, and it's absolutely ripped off. Feels like quite a nice fish. It's hard to tell because even some of the smaller fish have absolutely trashed me, and they really do put up a spirited fight. Turning out to be a real red letter day on Manor. She's in. That should do nicely. 26 pound 8 ounce of Manor Magic.
Nice one, another nice scaly one.
Right.
Oh, that's got a bite. And there we go, look. That just goes to show that 3 rods on one area really can produce. As I said, I've got nice tight lines. The middle rod was the one that done the bite. The fish comes straight away from the area, not causing too much havoc. And there was obviously a fair few fish out there because no sooner had that one gone in the net, as you just see, this one's away. Again, this one's come away. I've still got 1 rod positioned perfectly on the bait, so there is every chance that if we're that lucky, that one could go as well, but I shouldn't be too greedy, seeing as that's 2 bites in about 2 minutes. I'm going to crouch down and just do a little prayer. Unbelievable. If catching one of the big original one wasn't a bonus, I've only gone and caught a bit of a monster. Not quite sure how big it is, but compared to the upper double that I've just got in that landing net, I'm pretty convinced that's about twice the size. Probably not really too bothered about getting the rods back out now. Well, here we go then. I carried on fishing last night through the night, and in true linear form, first thing this morning was the best bite time, just before sort of first light. We tried to film, but it wasn't really great for filming, so we put this one in the retention sling for an hour just while the light broke, and there it is. This was part of a double take. The one that I've got in the net is probably, I don't know, roughly about 27 pound, and this one, absolute unit, 32.10. I can't quite believe it really. You know, I'd caught a few fish yesterday, then I caught that real nice original, and yeah, started off today's filming with a nice Hardwick 30. Awesome. Look at that. proper chunk. All right, calm down. It's fighting fit, that's for sure. Well, here we are then, second part of the brace that I had this morning. First one, as you saw, 32.10. Second one, this one here, fraction under 25 pound. Absolutely stunning fish, and I know I keep saying it, but this really is the quality of carp you can expect to catch in Hardwick and Smiths. So we'll slip this one back and we'll have a little look at rigs and bait. Well, here he goes, another Hardwick carp going back. Let's just hope this strong wind that's picked up today doesn't affect it. And hopefully we can carry on catching. It shouldn't be too bad. As long as I can keep my leads on the bar out there, should be all right. There he goes. Fishing up here at Linear, you know, you're not coming up here trying to reinvent the wheel and you know, sort of mess about with little bits and pieces. I come up here, fish for a purpose. You've got to know why you're fishing and know why you're doing certain things. The spod mix that I'm using, very, very simple. In fact, it consists of just 3 ingredients and 1 liquid. First of all, hemp. Every carp loves hemp. It goes down, it falls in all the little nooks and crannies, and it keeps the fish troughing for ages. Secondly, good old-fashioned sweet corn. As the name would suggest, it's super sweet, really visual, and it's easily digestible. Third ingredient, boilies. And I was just using a krill boilie. This is from Sticky Baits. Plenty of that in there, chops and holes, keeps the fish coming back for more. You know, the fish really can't get enough of it. To that, I'll leave that in a fair bit of water. To the spod mix itself, I'll add a good helping of a glug called Aqua Amino. And what that is a real fishy, smelly glug. And just basically you want to load your spod more of attraction rather than different bits and pieces. And as I said, use it as for a purpose. You know, today, prime example, fishing yesterday and it was nice and calm, and you could have got sort of all little bits and pieces to the bottom. Daylight today, 25, 30 mile an hour crosswind. If you've got a light spod mix, it's just going to blow anywhere. And certainly when fishing on bars like we are today, I don't want to be putting a spod out and thinking, oh, you know, has it drifted off the side into 28 foot of water? A good spod full of this will go straight down and fall straight down over the rigs. So that's the spod mix. Nice and simple, but effective. When it comes to quantity and amounts, I see a lot of people turn up, you know, they turn up with a bucket of bait. The first thing they want to do is put the whole lot out. It's no different to if you watch a matchman fish. You know, just because the matey next to him's got 8 pints of maggots doesn't mean he's going to catch 8 times as many fish. If you've got a bucket of bait, I can draw out a bucket like this probably for 24 hours. Just feeding on a little and often basis. I'm putting sort of 10 or 15 in to start with, and I'm just topping it up with 2 or 3 after each fish. Because again, turning up at a place like Linear, it's a very, very busy fishery, and you don't know who's been in there before you, and you certainly don't know how much bait they've put out. So if you go humping a load of fresh bait on top of someone's old bait, you could just kill the swim. And again, I know it sounds obvious, but you can put bait in, but you can't take it back out. So just start off little and often and build the swim up. That's Chris. Right, was just in the middle of filming some bait stuff and had a missed call off of Chris Blunt. Give him a phone back, and he's just informed me that some lad has just had one of the real jewels of Linear out of Manor, Kempis Linear, 48.13. You know, that's well worth winding in for and go and have a look. So I'll crank these in, we're going to shoot over and we'll go and have a look at it. Well, while we was filming over on Hardwick, got a call off of Chris to say that one of the real big ones has been out of Manor. So it was too good of opportunity not to come over and film it. This is where Kev's been fishing as well, and it's one that he's missed, and I'm sure one that he'll be gutted that he didn't catch. But even so, we'll have a look at it now. Kempis Linear, 48.13. Whoa. Unbelievable. Be one of Oxford's finest then.
about that then, Paddy?
Epic.
And there we go then, one of Manor's finest, Kempis Linear, £48.13. And the same chap, believe it or not, caught a lake record ghosty common yesterday at £35, and 2 days previous to that as well, the lake record common went again at £33. There's plenty of fish crashing behind me, so we'll have to leave it there, go back over to Hardwick and carry on. Right, you probably noticed by the other two bobbins that they're wedged right up against the buzzer. I'm not into all this fashionable slack lining. For me, it doesn't really prove anything, or it doesn't really achieve anything. Certainly on a day like today, you know, we've got a massive crosswind, we're fishing on top of a bar. The last thing I want to be doing is pan out loads of slack line, all drifting weed's going to catch it, and you're going to get false indication. And you know, it might be fashionable to have your bobbins on the floor, but really it's practicality over fashion for me. So nice tight line, instant bite indication, and you know where you stand. Well, here's a little tip, something I've been doing for a while up here. It's just washing out your boilers. You know, you're turning up here, you don't know who's been in the swim before you. Rather than going to pile a load of fresh bait on top of old bait, wash your bait out and sort of mimic what's already there. So I'm just putting these out. I've already made a spod mix up, putting the rest of my boilers in a bag, washing them out, and then when I come to making my next spod mix, they'd have already been pre-soaked in lake water. Well, that's the interruption out of the way. That's Kempis Linear, filmed and put back. What an unbelievable fish, 48.13, you know. I'll probably go to bed tonight dreaming about it, but we'll run through the spod mix. Now let's have a little look at baits, hook baits, and the boil is what I use. I use the krill from Sticky. I use this in 12mm, mainly because you get more in a bag. You know, if you've got 5 kilos of 16s or 5 kilos of 12s, you're gonna get a damn sight lot more 12mm. These go in chopped and whole. Fishing on Hardwick today, I'd probably be inclined to put more chops in because I'm fishing onto a bar, so I don't really want baits rolling off the side of it where I'm not fishing hook baits. This is the rig and hook bait choice that I use for probably 99% of my fishing here at Linear. And like I said, extremely simple. 5 to 6 inches of 20-pound strippable braid. That's knotless knotted to a size 4 SR hook, which is used for chod fishing and pop-up fishing. It's got an outturned eye. I've broken the material just before the eye of the hook to allow maximum movement. The hair's then trapped on the back of the shank with a small piece of hook silicone. And what that does is, where I'm fishing this as a single hook bait rather than with a PVA bag, it doesn't allow the hair to move up and down the hook. So when I'm casting out, everything's staying intact and landing as it should be. Hook bait wise, 12mm krill wafter barrel. I've taken the top of that off with a pair of scissors and just put a piece of buoyant sweet corn on top as well. And what this does is, I'm using a fairly big hook, and all the bits and pieces that the fish are picking up out there have no resistance. You know, they're not attached to anything, and I'm trying to mimic the exact same thing with my hook bait. So that's the rig I use, that's the bait I use, and that's what works. There you go. No sooner had I come back from seeing that fantastic 48 out of Manor, chuck the rods out in this, what is now a horrendous crosswind on Hardwick. It's really hard as it is without a wind to try and get 3 rods on top of a bar, but to try and do it with like a 30-mile-an-hour crosswind's even harder. Up the lead size, put a 4-ounce lead on them. Managed to get the first couple out there. 2 or 3 spawns back over the top. Sat back down, just about to carry on with a bit of bait stuff, and it's ripped off. So it doesn't feel too bad. It's just plodding away down in the margin. So hopefully we can coax this one round and get him in the net. It's quite a decent fish as well. Hopefully. He's a good, nice another 20 at least him. Nice big scaly one again, typical of these fish. Oh. Come on then, in you come. Yes! There he goes. Awesome. Oh yes. There we go. Absolutely stunning again. All of the fish that are in Hardwick, you know, they're the pick of the bunch, if you like, on the complex for me. I know they're only young fish, but certainly in another 5 or 6 years' time, when these have packed on the weight and they're sort of hitting 30s, it's going to be some venue. Can't really say much else really, they're all like this, even down to sort of the real small ones that are in there that are coming through. I spent a bit of time with a marker, just trying to find a decent spot where I could present a couple of rods. Managed to find sort of the top of a bar with a bit of deep water either side of it. Sort of standard what I would use every time I come here. A krill wafter, a little bit of plastic corn on top, hemp, corn, chop boilies. Don't really want to use many whole boilers because I don't want them rolling off the side of the bar. 10 bombs over the top, I say 2 rods on it, and it just works every time. Topping up after each bite, just to keep the bites coming. So yeah, nice and basic. Sort of when I fished here, sort of in the past, over the last few years, certainly the people that put the most amount of effort get the biggest rewards. And yeah, certainly proving it today. And there she goes, another hardwick pearl. Nice and slowly. Perfect.
Well, we just got a bite. A little bit different this one. Seen a few carp just poking their heads up a bit further out than the baited area, and decided that I'd chuck a zig to it. So yeah, just a 6-foot yellow zig, and just tanked it out where the fish were showing, and literally sort of just sat there, had a cup of tea, and it's gone off. You know, although our approaches, they're like our fail-safe approaches, just goes to show that you've just got to be a little bit versatile and sort of ring the changes. You know, at the end of the day, it looked really good earlier in the morning, overcast and windy, and yeah, we caught on the bottom as you would expect to really, and now the clouds are sort of drifted apart, bit of sunshine, and I thought, well, why not chuck a zig out? I can just imagine the carp being up off the bottom, and yeah, clearly they are. Got a bite straight away doing it. Well, that's another one in the bag. Brilliant. Well, there's another nice mirror. Just chucked a zig out long range, 6-foot yellow. Bite straight away.
If you come into Linear for the first time, you know, don't come down here with a preconceived idea that you've got to fish St John's, you've got to fish Manor, or you've got to be this peg number on this lake, because you know chances are you'll be travelling from a long way away, and you might not get the swim that you want. You know, this is a highly populated complex of lakes. You know, since I've been here, I've seen numerous amounts of people coming and going. There's 7 lakes here. You know, don't just turn up, like I say, and think, oh, I just need to go on this lake. Turn up, have a walk round. There's 7 lakes, they've all got good fish in it and all got fantastic sport to be had, and if you can't find them on the lake that you want to fish, go and have a look at the others. You know, they're all within probably Oxley's and Hunts are the furthest away, which is about half a mile away, which really is nothing. Have a good look around and don't come and set up the first peg you go on because you wanted to fish St John's. You know, just because you turn up the point of St John's is free, it doesn't mean that all the fish are going to be on the point of St John's. Come down, have a good look round and make your choice based on what you've seen. Speak to a few anglers. And again, another thing I would say, this area in particular, Oxford, seems to have a completely different climate. If you look on the weather and it's forecasting 3 degrees, the chances are it'll be about -4. I fished here more than enough times now. Yesterday was nice and calm and you could have fished anywhere you wanted. Today, 35, 40 mile an hour crosswind and it's making things very hard. Don't turn up with the wind off your back and fish to the other side. Turn up, fish a spot that's in your swim that you're comfortable fishing and that you can fish effectively for the duration of your session. So they're the things that I would say are most important when coming to linear, but the biggest one of all is don't come down with a preconceived idea that you've got to fish a particular lake. Well, there we go. What a fantastic session on Hardwick, and it really just goes to show if you get it right, the rewards are there to be had. A nice original 29, a nice 30. What we've seen Kempis as well at 48 is just unbelievable. I know Kev's had a real good session on Manor, Bart's had a good one on B2 as well. So all that's left for me to do now is to chuck this in the car, and we'll be back in the autumn where we'll be fishing some of the other day tickets, and one of us will be venturing across to the Syndicate Lakes.
Well, here we are, Oxley's Lake. Now Oxley's really is one of the jewels in the linear fisheries crown. I fished it for a number of years, probably around 12 years in total, on and off over the years, and I've had some lovely fish. The lake itself, the reason I like it so much is it's quite a decent size. It's 26 acres, so there's loads of space on here, loads of swims. One of the things I like about the lake is it's not too peggy either. The fish tend to move around a hell of a lot, so you can catch them from all over. There's not one particular swim that's just going to do all of the fish at any one point. There's lots of features to fish to as well. Up to my right, we've got the big island, sort of 3/4 of the way up the lake. That tends to produce quite a lot of fish, but the open water pace can be equally as good. It's got quite a decent depth in here. It probably averages around 14 foot. And unlike lakes like Hardwick, it's not up and down. It is pretty much flat all over. There's not too much in the way of features out there. Also, there's not too much weed. Quite easy to find somewhere to present a bait. You can literally pick a spot and fish anywhere. What I tend to do, keep my eyes on the water. If I can see fish showing, then that is exactly where I will fish. There are a few areas that are slightly gravelier. There's areas that are a bit siltier. And in my experience, you can catch fish on both the gravel and the silt. It is literally just a case of getting on the fish and putting the rigs in front of them. The lake itself is really well stocked. There's probably, I'd estimate there to be about sort of 1,800 carp in here, which is a decent stock, which means that they can be caught all over. As for size of fish, the lake contains some incredible fish. Nowadays, I'd estimate that there's well over 50 30s in here. I know of 4 fish over £40, and is topped by one of the biggest day ticket commons in the country, the big common that comes out at over £50. So if you're after a big fish, then this is definitely the lake to look at. In terms of tactics, I think it changes throughout the year. Through the summer months, they can be caught on big beds of particles, boilie fishing scores, well, a bit of everything basically, and you can't neglect a zig. Sometimes spodding over zigs can be really productive when you're on a big head of fish, when they're in front of you. So a bit of everything tends to work. As it gets later on into the year, maggots seem to be the dominant bait that seems to work really well. I've been catching my fish on maggots this session. If I was coming down for any winter session, I wouldn't be coming without them. I've been down here a couple of days now. I set up just on Darkness up the car park end. I didn't hear much showing, nothing really happening, heard a few fish further down the lake, so I've moved over onto the roadside on the boards, middle of the lake, and last night I started to hear a few fish show in front of me. So there was fish boshing out everywhere and I thought I was absolutely nailed on for a bite, but it just never materialised. And the longer the night went on, the more worried I was getting, but then first light, the rod ripped off and I've had a fish, and then it all just kicked off in a mad hour spell. I've just had 3 fish. So let's get these out and have a look at the typical stamp of Oxley's fish, and then after that we'll have a closer look at the rigs, tactics and bait that I've used to catch them. Let's have a closer look at her. Well, you can tell this fish has been absolutely troughing on the maggots through the night. She's passing them through in the sling. Yeah, I've just seen she's just passing in a little bit of corn as well. I've actually run out of maggots last night. So tonight I'm going to be using more conventional baits, sweet corn, hempen boilie, and it'll be interesting to see how I get on, see if I can catch as many fish tonight on conventional baits as opposed to last night when I was just fishing just plain maggot. Well, there we have it. A real clean looking, thick set, chunky Oxley's mirror. 27.5 pound, caught on a mad little feeding spell. Second fish of the session from Oxley's, and she's a right little character of a fish. 22 pounder, got a little short stubby stump on his tail, real thick wrist on it, so a little bit unusual, but nice character fish. Well, there we go, third fish of the morning, 24 pound, lovely little mirror, 3 bites, 3 20s, can't be bad for early winter. There we go. Right, this is the maggot rig I use on Oxley's. For those guys that are eagle-eyed out there, you'll see that it is exactly the same rig that I was using on Manor. It's my version of the hinge stiff rig, so all the same components, everything exactly the same. The only difference being is the hook bait mounting and the hook bait that I used. Whenever I'm fishing, whatever bait I'm feeding, I always want to mimic that with my hook bait. So for this session, we're into winter, so I'm maggot fishing on Oxley's, so I want a maggot hook bait basically. All I've done is I've thread quite a few maggots, probably about a dozen maggots and a couple of fake ones, onto a bit of hair braid and attached it to a bit of foam. The foam basically gives it the buoyancy. With the hinge stiff rig, you want it just popped up just off the deck, and when a carp looks down on that, all it sees is the big ball of maggots. And when you spod your maggots out, they kind of spread out all over the bottom. So that is going to be one of the most concentrated sort of balls of maggots out there. So it's going to be the most desirable hook bait or the most desirable piece item in the swim. So the carp are going to home in on that pretty quickly. When we're talking about quantities of maggots, I tend to use probably on average about 1 gallon a night. I'll certainly put 1 gallon of maggots out to start with. And then basically just play it by ear and see how it goes. Whenever I get bites, I'll always top up. So I kind of work on the theory that I'm going to use hopefully around about 1 gallon a night. So if I'm down for 48 hours, a couple of gallons is going to be just about get me through. You can use less. I'd always use a few more, but you can. I have caught fish just on PVA bags of maggots, and when I'm PVA bagging for maggots, I use a slightly different setup. I'll put everything inside a solid PVA bag, so I'll end up using an inline lead with a little short sort of 3 to 4 inch soft hook link, and I'll use the same sort of hook bait mounting, but I'll use less foam, so I'll make it so that hook bait is closer to the bottom and nice and balanced and slow sinking inside the PVA bag. So there's my maggot rig, the perfect rig for catching carp on Oxley's in winter. So that's my maggot rig for Oxley's looked at. Let's head over to Tom on Hunts and see how he's getting on.
Here we are, Hunt's Corner Lake, and to be honest, before I go any further, I've literally been here about 10 minutes, walked round with a barrow, saw some fish. It's only a small lake, quite narrow, about 80 yards. Saw some fish showing in the near margin, flicked a couple of bags down there, and bang, I've got one straight away. But anyway, we'll sort that one out in a minute. Hunt's itself, 9 acres in size, 10 swims. A little bit more exclusive as well, almost an acre per peg, which isn't available on any of the other day ticket lakes. So the price is a little bit more, not much, it's only £5 extra per night. Oh, just had another liner there. You've got 400 carp in here, and 40% of them are over £20 with a large head of £30 as well. For me, this is the water that if you're not a confident caster and you're not ready to go on to say B1, B2, where you've got to be chucking sort of 100, 110 yards at times, you can come onto here. It's only 80 yards wide, so the maximum you're going to be fishing is sort of 50 yards, and you know you're always in with a chance of a good 20, or if you're really lucky, hook into one of the 30-pounders. The swims itself, 10 swims, not one swim is facing another swim, so you can fish from your margin, if you want, right across to the far margin, and that's going to cause no interference with anyone else. So the swim's nice and spaced out, away from all the other lakes, and as I said, the fish are certainly in here, as that one in there has proven. Get this one out, and we'll have a little look at them, shall we? Hold the old net down. Ooh, a bit bigger than I thought. Film me like that, yeah. Well, there he is, the carp that I caught within about 10 minutes of being here. I'm not going to weigh him, probably 21, 22 pound, proper chunky mirror. This one was caught just on a simple boilie approach, something that I've used quite a bit on hunts before. These fish in here, they're growing, they're hungry, give them something they want. So there he is. We'll slip him back and we'll have a little look at the rigs. Oh, the water's freezing. Go and tell your mates. Well, I've had a couple of liners as well while I've been chatting away, so hopefully it's looking good for tonight. But for now, I'll warm my hands up and get some more rigs tied. This is the rig that I'm using, simple snowman setup. I've got the 14mm boilie there which I'm feeding, 10mm pop-up which critically balances that. Size 5 hook, I like to use a nice big hook so when it goes in you know it's not coming out. That's just trapped to the back of the shank of the hook with a piece of silicone, and then 8 or 9 inches of strippable braid. You've got a quick link there just to attach to the quick link swivel on the leg clip setup which I'm using, so if I get a fish, quickly unhitch the rig and put a new one on. And attached to that, just a bag of crushed. About 4 or 5 baits there that I've just ground down. Simply all I'm doing, hooking it on. When that goes out, that's just masking the hook from the silkweed. When it dissolves, leaving a nice bed of crumb around the hook bait, leaving it perfectly presented. Well, it's literally as I slip that fish back, and it is literally as I slipped it back as well. The rod that I said I'd had a couple of liners on has just gone off again. I'm only fishing 6 rod lengths out, which is really, really close, a lot closer than I'd ever fish on any of the other lakes. But as I said, you don't need to fish a long way out. You'll probably see in a minute, I've got a nice overhanging tree runs me right hand side, and just off that's about 8 foot deep. Keeping pressure on it should see him through. I've got chesties, so I can always jump in and get a better angle if I need to. But it should be okay. Right, it's away from all the snags now, any potential dangers. The average size of fish in this is so good. 40% of the stock's over 20, so probably coming into the winter now, you're probably looking at nearer 50%. Oh, he's a nice fish him. Want him in the old net if we can. But this ain't a bad fish, to be fair. It's bigger than the last one. So we want him. Hopefully there's the white pop-up on top of the old snowman. Perfect. Oh yes. Yeah, that's bigger than I thought that. Well, the first fish that I had, 21, 22 pound, as I was saying, good head of 20s in here. And yeah, as we're filming away, The old rod's gone off again, the one that I had a couple of liners on, playing it. It's got me in the snag, but I managed to guide him out. And yeah, got one in the net now, 29.6, so absolutely buzzing. As we've already said, it's coming into what, like, late October now, so the water's cooling off, and yeah, where else can you come and catch fish like that? So let's grab him out and have a little look. Oh, unit. There he is, 29 pounds 6 ounces of Hunt's Corner Mirror. And as I was saying before, you know, you don't have to be a massive caster to catch fish out of this place. This fish was caught with just 6 rod lengths out. Unbelievable. 2 20s within probably 2 or 3 hours of being here. So what I'll do is I'll slip this one back, and in the process of me getting this one in, my phone's gone off and Bart's texted in to say that he's just landed his first one out the syndicates. So I'll slip this one back and I'll leave you with Bart.
Well, here we are. I'm set up on Unity Lake. This is part of the Guy Lake syndicates of Linear Fisheries, and oh, what a place. This is the first time I've actually set eyes on this place, and they're incredible, these lakes. I'm actually fishing the biggest one. This is Unity. It's 25 acres, and the reason why I'm on here is that there are actually some 40-pound ghost carp in here, and there's hardly any of those in the country. So I've been given a special, special permission to fish here to show you guys the lakes and that, and I'm holding out for one of the big ghosties. But not only are the ghosties in here, there's several over 40 pound, but you've got an absolute incredible amount of 30-pound fish in here. You know, it's a proper lake, it's 25 acres. Feature-wise, it's absolutely perfect for the carp to grow in. It's, there's bars, there's gullies, silt areas, loads of weed for them to thrive in. And there's a sensible amount of swims on the lake, so the fish aren't massively pressured all year round, so it gives them the freedom to grow as well. So yes, that's me plotted up on here. The backup fish in this lake is, there's 460, 470 carp in this lake. I've actually caught one. I've caught one of the stock fish. They introduce a couple of fish sort of every year or so on, that's their special department, but I've actually caught one of their stock fish, and it's absolutely stunning. And she's down there in the sling at the moment, which we're going to show you in a second. But yeah, so that's this lake. Over the way there, you've got the Gaunts Lake, slightly smaller than this place, but that's actually got a 50-pound mirror in there now. It came out a couple of weeks ago at 51 pound. It's an incredible fish. But not only that, there's another 40-pounder in there as well. And again, the amount of 30-pound fish in there for the size of the lake is pretty something. And and then that leads you on to the third lake, which is Yeomans. Yeomans has got a similar amount of fish in. Again, that's the smallest of the lakes, but it's got the same amount of fish in. All of them have got sort of 450 plus fish in there, so you can really pick and choose what you want to do with your fishing. But you get all this. You can fish all 3 lakes on the same ticket. There's a little bit of a waiting list, but you'll never get the opportunity to fish for these ghost carp and for these big other fish as well if you haven't got your name on the list. If you're interested, get your name down. You can always turn it down if you don't want it. For certain, I'll be popping my name on the list. It's getting on in the day now. So what I've done is I've opted for a more central swim, sort of quite stereotypical the way I fish really. I'm going to fish towards the middle. I'm going to put some bait in. Going to put a few maggots in, some sweet corn, something that the fish absolutely adore. I'm quite well known for a bit of maggot fishing in the winter. I reckon if these ghosties come on my baited area, I reckon they're going to be a little bit crafty. I've caught a few ghosties and they're quite hard to catch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 3 rods on one spot, and hopefully I'm going to trip up a nice 40-pound ghost carp. The weather is due, is due to change. We've got low pressure coming in, and the wind's going to swing round. At the minute it's sunny, bright skies as well, but that's all going to change by the morning apparently. So there's a bit of rain on its way with some southwesterly wind and a drop in pressure, which, for the way that I'm fishing at the minute, is absolutely plumb for that sort of weather. So, fingers crossed I might get a few bites in the morning as well. So only time will tell. But for now, what we'll do is we'll have a look at this little fish and get around and have a look. This is one of the fish that they've stocked to come on for the future, and what an incredible looking carp. I actually caught this fish on a tactic that has caught me so many carp over the years, of waters that I've never seen before, which is just a solid PVA bag of pellets. So I just chucked it towards where the bubbles were coming up. I had a bite off of this beauty. So yeah, I'm well pleased.
Well, it was all quiet yesterday through the daytime. There was no fish showing whatsoever, but soon as the darkness fell, like the night before, fish started wellying out one after another. I expected to get a take first thing in the morning like the previous morning, but no, I had my first bite at 8 o'clock and my second bite at 9 o'clock in the evening. The first one was a lovely 22-pound mirror. Obviously I couldn't get any footage of it because it was dark, so I had to slip those ones back. It just goes to show that a change of tactics, it can work as well. It's not just all about the maggots. I had this preempted thing in my mind that it was all going to be about the maggots, but last night I had a couple of fish on my usual spod mix as well. So I thought I was going to go on and catch a few more fish through the night. I topped up after the second fish and I thought that morning would bring a few more bites, but it didn't quite happen. But the fish started showing a bit more to my right and got further and further down. I actually heard a take come from quite a long way down to my left, and that was it for the action for me through the night. But I've had a good session. We're just coming into winter now. I've ended up with 5 fish, 4 of them over 20 pound. And to be honest, you can't ask for much more than that really. So if you're looking to go somewhere any time of year just to get some bites with a real good chance of a PB, then Oxley's is definitely the one for you.
Well, over on Unity last night I managed another 4 fish on top of the one that you've seen. Unfortunately they all come in the hours of darkness, which is typical of back end of the season. And on linear fisheries there is like the retaining fish, sacking them up is actually banned unless you get permission from a bailiff. So if you catch one of the A team, then fair enough, give the bailiffs a call and they'll either instruct you whether to retain the fish or to let it go. So but we're here, we're on St John's, and we're just about to witness the most iconic 40-pounder in the country, which is nearly 50 pound now. And yeah, so we're going to have a look. You alright, Linz? Got a special one again?
Yeah, the plated again.
Yeah? You haven't seen that one for what, a week now?
Just over a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Lindsay's caught the plated 3 times now. She's actually lost it once to the net as well. Not only has she caught the plated 3 times, a couple of months back she caught the Oxley's common at over 50 pound. And there is something to be said for women fishing at linear fisheries. There's a couple of other girls that come here fishing, and they've pretty much caught every big fish between them as well. And yeah, in my eyes, I think they should. I might have to have a word with Chris and see if we can get them kicked off, because it's no good. You come here and catch all these big uns and don't leave any left for us blokes, do you?
No, not really.
You're outnumbered about 1,000 to 1, and yeah, and knock them out for fun. Should we have a look at her? I'm itching to have a look, so yeah, let's get her out. Do you want me to pick it up and I'll just move this? You move this, Lynn. These fish are for everybody to catch, and it's actually in the rules at linear fisheries that you just carry a bottle of, medical treatment for the fish. It only takes just a little blob on the hook hold, and they're there preserved for everybody else to catch then as well. That is the most iconic 40-pounder in the country there. Next year it'll probably be the most iconic 50-pounder in the country. At Linya, a lot of the lakes they're quite big gravel pits, and most people will associate that with fishing sort of quite long range. You know, spotting a lot of bait out 100 yards or so, but it's not really the case, is it, Linz? You've caught this fish, what, 40 yards from the bank every time?
Yeah, I don't ever fish far out. I just flick it out and
past the trees.
Yeah, just past the trees. That's it.
Yeah, it's
couple
crazy.
of rod lengths and it's easy.
Yeah. Well, it certainly made me think about fishing in the the margins a bit, especially when you've got creatures like that in your cradle.
Yeah, she's a beautiful fish.
Don't forget to give her a kiss.
There you go.
Yeah, all right, catch you later. Well, seems like the weather's spurred the fish on to feed. That was Tom on the phone. He's actually caught a couple more 20s from down at Hunt's Corner. So we'll pop over and have a look at those now. One of them's quite big as well, so sound.
Just topping up the swim with some boilies. That's all I've been using. It's, went pretty mad last night. I had the two during daylight hours yesterday, and when it got dark I had one about 8 o'clock, one about 9, one about 1, one at 3. Obviously no sacking rule, so they had to go back. Say 2 doubles, a 21 and one about 23. Proper chucked it down as well last night. Yesterday during the day really sunny and nice, and then at 1 o'clock this morning the heavens opened, so I think that's probably what brought the bites on. Little snowmen on, little bag of crushed boilies, and just flicking them to sort of tree line markers that I could go back to at night, and then just putting sort of 5 or 6 spodfuls of boilies over each one after each bite. So right, that's enough of that. Let's have a look at the fish. There he is, lovely Hunt's Corner ghosty common. In fact, just under 25 pounds. It's probably the biggest ghost carp that I've ever caught. This one come about half an hour ago, I suppose, just on the left-hand rod. I found a nice little clear spot down there, just a bit of gravel, and surrounded by some weed. Snowman presentation, little bag of crushed boilies, and 2 spodfuls of boilies. Good. Yeah, nice, isn't he? Let's just get the other one out. This was on the middle rod, this one, so they're coming from all of the spots. I've caught on the left, middle and the right. No further than 8 rod length from the bank. There it is, the other one that I just had, £22, 14 ounces. Brings the total for the night to 7 fish now, which, you know, is unbelievable, better than I expected. 2 doubles and 5 20s, you know, 2 upper doubles as well, 3 sort of this sort of size, that ghosty just under 25, and of course the 29 pounder. You know, there's not many places that you can just rock up to, have a walk round, find some fish and catch 7 in a night, and especially with the quality of these fish as well. So awesome. That's it, that's my session on Hunt's done. 7 fish in a night, can't be bad. As I said, middle of October now, so it's not exactly the easiest of conditions. And all the fish as well, caught under 40 yards, which is easily accessible for any angler. So if you're looking to come to Linya, fancy coming on to Hunt, as I said before, you pay a little bit more money, but you get a lot more water per swim, and as you've seen, good fishing. So bundle this in the van and I'll be off.
Me and Tom have packed up now. Kev's already gone home, but I mean, we've had another really nice session. I mean, everyone's caught fish again, haven't they?
Yep, caught again in May and then again now in October. So just shows, you know, coming into the winter months, October now, and we've still managed to come up here and put fish on the bank, you know, and what we've shown you and what we've done isn't really groundbreaking, nice and simple tactics, and they've worked on all the lakes.
I mean, you could come here, no matter what sort of like level of angling you've done yourself, you could come in, you will find fish somewhere on the complex that suits your fishing, and you'll catch them. You know, these fish, there's a healthy stock of fish in every lake, and they're always up for a bit of grub. I think
don't come here basically thinking that, you know, you want to fish one lake in particular. As you've seen, I've been on hunts fishing at like 8 rod lengths, which, you know, is under 40 yards, which is easily accessible for most people to fish. Bart back in the spring was on B2 fishing at range. There's something for everyone here, and as well with their 7 lakes, if you turn up and one lake's busy, you know, you've got 6 other lakes to choose from, so you've always got options. And plus 2 of the fish that we've seen as well, you know, the big plated and kempies, they're just 2 of the A team on the complex as well. So
not only that though, like, I mean, as far as the fish in the country are concerned, there are arguably the most
accessible for day ticket. Yeah,
it's ridiculous the amount of big fish that are available here. I mean, like, you know, slap your name down on the old syndicate list, because I mean, there's a 50-pounder in there, there's 40s in all of the lakes, and the same with these lakes up here. I think
B1 and 2 40-pounders. This one hard weight, you know,
done a 43 as well.
40, yeah,
this week.
Big uns in all of them. So yeah, if that's not enough to get you down to Linney, then we don't know what is.
Hi, I'm Ian. I took over from Roy back in April of this year. I'm the new head bailiff on Linear. Today I'm over on Brasenose 1 to do some tickets. Brasenose is very similar to the rest of the day tickets on the complex. Just rock up, set up, and myself or one of my bailiffs will come around and issue you a ticket. We have fish here to cater for everybody. We've got carp up to £50, and we have a pond down up the road up by Hud's Corner, which is full of small rudd and roach, tench up to just under double figures, and a few carp for your youngsters. There's 3 main rules at Linear. The first one, which is a big pet hate for a lot of us guys, is turning around the corner and you're parked up on the grass, unloading your tackle, your rods are out. It's a no-no. We don't want to send people home, but they do go home for being on the grass. Secondly, death rigs. There's enough information in the angling press as regards to rig safety. Come on guys, you're paying a lot of money to fish for these fish. Keep it real, keep it safe. Thirdly, unhooking mats. Ample sizes. We've got big fish on site, up to £50. We need ample size unhooking mats. Abide by the 3 simple rules and you'll have many, many hours and months of fun down at Linear. Well, I've got a ticket to do.